Hello, my name is Kiriath, and today we're going to talk about Warhammer 40,000 Conquest, and that is because there is an image what shows all of the stuff that you get from this this magazine run. It's going to be 80 issues, and the total cost of it, and thank you very much to Vincent Notley for providing figures on this, because you beat me to it. I was going to sit down and go through the value of everything in this image, and then you already did it. So it means I don't have to. So thank you very much. There's a link to Vincent's breakdown in the description. It's worth reading. The individual prices and everything are in there, so you can do direct comparisons yourselves. I'm just going to go on the bulk figures for what is in here, and basically this actually looks like a pretty good idea. I kind of liked the idea of it before when it was the pilot run. By the way, this is the actual run of it. There was like a test. There was like a pilot run, a test run of it, to see whether it would be popular enough to be worth it. And it turns out it is popular enough to be worth it. So yeah, the contents of this thing over the full span of this run is pretty good. There's there's a sizable Death Guard force. There's a sizable Space Marine force. There is a lot of scenery with which to presumably fight the two forces against each other, and when it comes to actual value of what you get in the box versus how much you're paying, it's pretty good. So as Vincent has pointed out, roughly £625 cost for the actual 80 issue run, and there is an option to pay an extra £1.50 per issue, which bumps it up to £745 for the whole run. Now, that probably seems like quite a bit of money on the face of it, because it is. That's, 625, 750, both of those big numbers. But the actual value of what is in the box is significantly more than that, and that's just counting the miniatures. So, the Death Guard value, estimated, is £315.50. So if you're going for the £625 option, not the premium option, just the standard one, that's half of the budget, so to speak, gone. You are getting £315 worth of Death Guard in this collection, which presumably means that Space Marines are going to be roughly similar value. And indeed, the Space Marine force comes out to around £348.50, along with a figure that Vincent doesn't recognise, and I have to admit I don't recognise either, which is most likely an exclusive miniature. So already, just from the Death Guard and Space Marine sides of this Warhammer 40,000 Conquest magazine run of 80 issues, you are saving money. Not a huge amount of money, but a little bit of money, and saving is never bad, let's be honest. That doesn't even take into account the terrain, because the terrain comes to £212. So suddenly you've got £876 worth of models, and you are saving £250 by buying them through Warhammer 40,000 Conquest. That is really not a bad margin. You're saving quite a lot of cash with that. Even if you take the premium subscription, where you get extra stuff, and I mean the extra stuff are things like game boards and dice and various other things, they're still saving £131 on the models themselves, which is really not bad. That is not bad at all. That also doesn't even count the fact that you are getting the resources required to assemble and paint these things at the same time. You're not just getting the models, you get paint, and we already know there's like 3 brushes, there's some paint, there's like dice and stuff like that. So the actual value of it is higher than it appears. It's already decent value if you only do the metric of how much of the miniatures. When you add in the rest of the stuff as well, it kind of goes up in value again. The only thing is, it's a little tricky to put a value on that, because that stuff isn't specifically listed. Like, this image has been, this is the image of what you get if you subscribe to the entirety of Warhammer 40,000 Conquest. But there is no image that contains, all the paints or glue or brushes or anything like that. That stuff is still a little bit of a mystery. But then again, in a way, it doesn't really matter, because just by looking at how much the miniatures will cost individually compared to how much Conquest will cost overall, if you then add in, a few pots of paint every couple of weeks, a few brushes every couple of weeks, some die sets every couple of weeks, some glue, all of that stuff, it just becomes better and better value every single time. And I have to admit, I was a little bit tempted, because I was like, that's saving a lot of money. That is one of those things where it's almost that false economy thing where you're like, hell, I'd be stupid not to do that, even though it would still cost £625, because if I were to do it any other way, I'd be spending more. But I resisted the temptation, because I've got my Emperor's Children to do, and I even at the rate of getting like 2 models once every week, I still wouldn't be able to keep up, because trying to kit bash an entire army takes a hell of a lot of time. Minor progress report, by the way. That's Obliterator 1 right there. So yeah, that's coming along. It's honestly a good idea. I am 100% on board with this. I like how much you save. I like the fact that you are getting everything you need to actually put these things together and paint them. The overall value is really good, and I would be really interested to see, if it does well, whether this is something that becomes more regular, whether we start to see them do it for other armies. I mean, Death Guard versus Space Marines, that's the current standard for starting in the hobby, in terms of the Dark Imperium set, which, let's face it, is great to start the hobby with, because you can just split it with someone. But I would like to see the concept extended out to other armies as well, because feasibly you could do this with any faction versus any other faction. Well, you probably won't want to do Imperium versus Imperium, but you know what I mean. I would like to see this happen more. And I have to admit, I was a little bit confused as to the target audience of this. I thought, well, great for getting new people in. Yeah, I think it is going to be good for getting new people in, but it also clearly has appeal for people who are already in the hobby. If you already have a Death Guard force or a Space Marine force, if you have one but not the other, but you want both, even if you just fancy a change of pace and you want a different project, the way that this is being delivered and the overall value of it, it kind of makes it difficult to ignore. It kind of makes it very tempting, even if you know you shouldn't be tempted. And to be honest, the drip feeding method of getting like a couple of models once a week, I quite like that as a way to kind of get yourself into the swing of modelling and painting regularly. I think there's enough there to keep you occupied until the next issue arrives, but there's not so much that you will be completely swamped within the first 5 weeks. I think it's quite a clever way of doing it, and I've kind of gone from I wouldn't say not caring, being a little bit wary as to whether it could actually work, whether the demand was there, to kind of thinking, yeah, this is actually a pretty good idea, and the way that they have handled what goes into it, they've done that properly, they've done that right. This is a good step, and clearly there's enough interest for them to go and do the full 80 issue run, which is very, very promising, because it does increase the chance that we might see stuff like this again in the future. So yeah, that is the contents of Warhammer 40,000 Conquest. I think it's definitely worth a look if you want to start either of those armies. I mean, there's no reason why you couldn't sell off the bits that you don't want, but having a Space Marine force and a Death Guard force, it's nothing to sniff at, especially when you're saving as much as you are with that, and getting terrain to go with them, I think is a nice touch and significantly boosts the kind of attractiveness of Conquest overall. So yeah, and your question is, are you going to grab it? Are you interested? Are you not interested? Do you think it's going to work? How many people do you think are going to dive into it and actually go for the full run of it? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. In the meantime, feel free to click the Patreon, subscribe videos, all that shit. Click it if you like. Don't click if you don't want to. And I will see you for the next one. Toodaloo.